building a skill is far more beautiful than what people show in videos, but at the same time, it's far more painful too, because most people only see the result of skill, not the hell behind it. When someone speaks well, you only see their confidence. When someone makes good money, you only see the outcome. When someone is calm, charismatic, grounded, their words have impact, their body looks strong, their mind feels focused, your brain immediately says, this person is talented. But what you don't see are the 100 failures that came before it, those nights they felt worthless, those moments they wanted to quit, those days they saw no results, but kept going anyway. And this is where most people make a mistake. They think skill means natural talent, when in reality, skill is often just the ability to tolerate being bad at something, tolerating the fact that in the beginning, you suck, tolerating embarrassment, tolerating people being better than you, tolerating the voice in your head saying, you're not made for this. And the painful truth is, most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they run away from these feelings. Because at the beginning of every skill, you are weak, and the human mind hates feeling weak. It wants to be good immediately, seen immediately, admired immediately. That's why many people never enter the real stage of learning. They just circle around it. They want to learn a language, but they can't tolerate hearing their broken accent. They want to create content, but they can't handle their first videos being bad. They want to build a strong body, but they run from the pain of training. They want to start a business, but they can't tolerate financial mistakes. And this is the most painful part of building a skill. For a while, you have to tolerate a version of yourself you don't even like. A version that isn't professional yet, not strong yet, not confident yet, not impressive yet. A version with no real results. And many people run away exactly there, because the mind is obsessed with protecting the ego. It hates feeling incompetent. That's why people often prefer not to start at all, rather than risk looking weak. And this quietly steals years of their life, because time passes, and in their imagination, they are still gifted. But in reality, they never built anything, and that contradiction slowly exhausts a person from the inside, because deep down they know, I could have become more than this. I just didn't stay long enough. I quit too early. I backed away when things got hard. And maybe one of the realest definitions of strength is this: being able to tolerate being a beginner without giving up, because skill doesn't look like skill at first. At first it looks like failure after failure, like someone learning guitar for the first time. Their fingers hurt, the sounds are terrible, the rhythm is broken, but eventually, after hundreds of repetitions, their fingers slowly begin to understand. The body learns, the mind adapts, and what once felt impossible starts feeling natural. The same is true for everything: public speaking, sales, confidence, fitness, writing, communication, relationships, money management, mental control. Nobody starts great, but there's something that separates successful people from everyone else. They don't judge themselves too quickly. What does that mean? It means after 3 failures they don't say, I'm not made for this. They understand that the brain needs time to build new pathways. And this is something many people don't understand. Skill isn't just learning, it's neurological adaptation. Your brain needs to see repetition thousands of times before a new behavior starts feeling natural. That's why the beginning feels so hard, because your brain is resisting. It's saying, this isn't safe, this is unfamiliar. And most people become slaves to that resistance. They think because something is difficult, it must be wrong, when many times, difficulty is exactly the sign that growth is happening. And ironically, the person who intimidates you today was once terrible too. That confident speaker, that athlete, that disciplined creator, that skilled entrepreneur, that charismatic person, all of them once had a version of themselves that would probably shock you if you saw it today. But the difference was, they didn't judge themselves in the middle of the process. They kept going, and time loves people who keep going, because time turns repeated small actions into power. And this is exactly what the modern world forgot. Everyone wants shortcuts, quick hacks, magic formulas, instant results. But real skills are usually built through boring repetition. And the problem is, repetition isn't exciting. Nobody applauds it. Someone practicing 2 hours every day may see no dramatic results for months. But beneath the surface, huge changes are happening. Neural connections are changing. Reaction speed improves. Movements become smoother. Confidence slowly builds. And one day, people suddenly say, "Wow, you became really good." Even though it wasn't sudden at all. Someone simply stayed long enough. And maybe that's the greatest secret of skill. Staying when the results still aren't visible. Because most people love results, but they don't love the process. Everyone wants to look powerful, but nobody wants to live through the phase of weakness. And that's why so many people end up performing the image of mastery, without actually mastering anything. They talk about success, without real results. They talk about discipline, while living chaotically. They talk about confidence, but collapse under pressure. Because real skill isn't built through words. It's built through friction, through repetition, through mistakes, through correction, through standing up again. And one of the most dangerous things that can stop growth is the fear of making mistakes. Because someone who fears mistakes rarely practices deeply. They always play safe. They stay inside environments where they won't fail. But growth happens outside that space, where you don't fully control everything, where you might embarrass yourself, where you might fail publicly, where you might look weak. And that's exactly where most people retreat, because their ego is stronger than their dream. But someone who truly wants to build a skill eventually makes a decision. I'm willing to look foolish for a while, so I can become truly strong later. And that decision changes a life, because after that, every mistake becomes information, not proof of worthlessness. And that changes everything. A weak person makes a mistake and says, "I'm useless." A growing person makes a mistake and says, "So this method didn't work." One destroys their identity, the other adjusts the path. And this mindset changes everything. Because you were never supposed to be perfect on day one. You were never meant to learn without errors. That's not how the brain works. The brain learns through mistakes, through adjustment, through repetition. That's why someone who runs from mistakes is actually running from learning itself. And ironically, many people admired today once made more mistakes than everyone else. They simply stayed longer. That's it. Not always smarter, not always more talented. They just stayed. And this is an important truth. Very often, the winner isn't the person with the best start. It's the person who came back after the 101st fall. And that return matters more than people realize. Because over time, a person doesn't become strong only through skill. They become strong by surviving pain, by surviving embarrassment, failure, judgment, disappointment. And this is what builds real confidence, not compliments. Because when you failed over and over, but kept going anyway. A new voice starts forming inside your mind. A calm voice saying, I don't run from difficulty. And that creates power. A kind of power that doesn't exist in words. It exists in memory, in the body, in experience. That's why some people walk into a room with a strange calmness, because life has pressured them repeatedly, and they are still standing. And that kind of presence cannot be faked. It's built like muscle, and building a skill is exactly that. Building a version of yourself that didn't exist before, slowly, quietly, realistically, and maybe right now, a part of you is tired of unfinished beginnings, tired of getting motivated, only to disappear halfway through. Maybe it's time to change your perspective. Maybe building a skill was never supposed to feel good all the time. Maybe you were never supposed to feel confident every day. Maybe some days you simply need to continue, even when it feels like no progress is happening. Because many times, the biggest transformations happen before they become visible, like roots growing beneath the ground. And the person who understands this stops rushing so much. They realize building something real takes time, and more importantly than time, it takes tolerance. Tolerance for your imperfect version. Tolerance for slow progress. Tolerance for mistakes. Tolerance for feeling behind. And maybe this is the most mature form of growth. Instead of running from weakness, you quietly work on it, without performance, without rushing, without needing to prove yourself every day. You simply continue, and one day, something strange happens. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once terrified you becomes normal. And that's when you realize the skill has been built, not overnight, but through 100 mistakes, 100 recoveries, 100 moments of continuing anyway. And maybe in the end, that's what real strength actually means. Not never falling, but being willing to begin again every single time you do.